knows what she wants to be. Inside her, there's longing. This girl's an open page, bookmarking. She's so close now. This girl is half his age. Don't stand, don't stand so close to me. Don't stand.
Hello everyone, this is Mrs. Har, our third week of subject matter here in Psychology 2, and we are still under the umbrella of the stress response and anxiety and clinical manifestations, but we're going to talk specifically this week about stress disorders. Next week we're going to talk about phobias, which are stress related. It's that fear, still that response that gets generated from anxiety. So that's next week, it's phobias, and we're going to talk about a bunch of weird and different phobias that do exist and really impact people's lives. This week we're still talking about stress disorders, and there's a couple different ones we're going to discuss this week, and how we determine if someone has a clinical manifestation of a stress disorder, what the criteria are. So the ones we're going to look at this week is they all fall under that general adaptation response that is causing, remember, all those physical issues to arrive, and mental, these responses, this fight or flight. This is kind of where all of this starts to come from. So just kind of keep that in mind as we're in this whole subject matter under anxiety, these first 4 weeks of psychology. And our body is in tune. Think back to, we were taught to take off if we saw a huge woolly mammoth, that sort of thing. So our body is taught to respond to stress. So these disorders that are going to take place is perhaps the stress is not as we really perceive it. So it is a clinical issue. So one thing we're going to talk about is the general anxiety disorder. This is a clinical manifestation where someone can actually have the disorder of GAD. I know we've talked about GAS, that general adaptation response that we have to a stressor or some threat. But GAD is general anxiety disorder. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about social phobias and what it is like to have a social phobia disorder clinically. We're also going to touch on OCD. I know you all have heard about OCD. And then we're going to talk about panic attacks. So that is what we have up to do this week. So the biggest assignment you have 3 things to do for my class this week. The biggest one is you are going to interview someone, and my hint to you is choose someone that's not super outgoing, because it's a little more fun. But you're going to interview a peer or a family member or a friend or a teacher, anybody that you can say, hey, can I steal you for 10 minutes? 10 minutes at the most. And you're going to ask them a certain set of criteria questions about how they feel in public. Now keep in mind, most of us at times, unless we're completely gregarious and outgoing, tend to, like when we're meeting new people or going into like a new work situation or when we have to present, we get a little anxious. But what we're trying to determine if this person that you're interviewing has enough to what we could say clinically be diagnosed with social phobia disorder. So it's kind of fascinating to look at it that way. Keep in mind when we're doing a diagnosis, normally it comes down to, does this issue significantly impact their ability to lead productive, healthy lives? So keep that in the back of your mind. I will be pointing you to the DSM. Remember, that's the diagnostic manual. I'll be pointing you back to that link where you can go ahead and determine based on the responses from this person, from your subject. So we're going to act like clinicians. You're going to take this poor subject and you're going to ask them these questions. You're going to report in your chart to me, your chart summary. You can do a Word document. You can do Excel. Whatever, however you want. But I want you to tell, as you're asking these questions, I want you to note not only their responses, but how they answer the questions. Because this, especially those of you that are considering going into psych, these are things you're going to have to start watching when you are interviewing or you're working with someone in a therapeutic setting. It's not just their verbal responses. We're watching their facial expressions and how they say things and their eye contact. And we're kind of putting this all together to see if like, let's say their facial expression, are they smiling while they say, I'm so sad, but they're smiling. That would be incongruent facial expression. So these are the things we're looking for. So I'm not going to ask you to get too technical, but just kind of report to me. What was their body language and their facial effects and their eye contact while they were answering these questions? Then after you finish the interview, you say to your friend or your parent or whoever the victim is that you chose to do this on, hey, thanks so much. Then you're going to go to do the next part, and based on what you gathered, you're going to see if they do qualify for the criteria according to the diagnostic manual. After that, after you do that, you're not going to go back to the person and say, hey, guess what I found out? Because once again, it all comes back to, does it significantly impact them? And if a person has amazing coping mechanisms in place, they may be able to overcome it, and it's not considered a disorder. But it's just kind of fun to give you guys a chance to assess as clinicians and then to pretend diagnose. So that is one of your assignments. That's your biggest one. That's worth 35 points. Then you're going to watch a video as a person who has panic disorder and panic attacks talks about what it feels like. And I want you to watch that video and then answer these questions that I've posed for you to think about how people externally kind of respond to panic attacks and what it looks like internally. And then you have a short, small quiz that you have for this week just to summarize the material. So let me know if you have any questions or concerns. I hope you're enjoying our journey, and we will continue moving through. We're going to finish off with our disorders under the anxiety umbrella and move into the depressive affective disorders next. So bipolar, that sort of thing. That's our next journey. But next week we still have phobias, and then we'll wrap up our journey here in the stress component, anxiety disorders. Let me know if questions or concerns. Remember, if you ever want me to meet you in an office hours, I can jump into a live session. You can text me, you can call me, you can email me. All questions are great questions. Thanks, everyone.
Knows what she wants to be. Inside, there's longing.